Today we'll be reading a fic by CharlieIsFluid from AO3, which is called Helping His Princey. It is a one-shot and a trigger warning for self-harm as observed by someone with a young mindset. This is an age regression fic, and the summary entails: Janice regresses in the middle of the night, and he really wants to play with Princey. But Princey is preoccupied and can't be a very good caregiver. That's okay. Janice can help him. Even if he's regressed all the way back to being nonverbal, he can still help his Princey. Let's begin then. Janice lay curled up in his bed. He had woken up and not been able to go back to sleep, which was okay. But then he panicked because he couldn't remember where he was for a second, and apparently a brief moment of panic was enough for him to regress. This wasn't good. He didn't want to wake Princey, but he could tell that he was pretty young. Baby even. Uh-oh. Without really thinking about it, Janice grabbed his posse and his snake stuffy and started toward his favoriteest person ever's room. He shoved his posse into his mouth as he walked, hugging Hissy close to his chest. He felt a small wave of relief crash over him when he got sight of Princey's room, and he let out a happy whimper. But then he heard soft crying inside. Double uh-oh. Was Princey sad? Princey wasn't allowed to be sad. Janice would just have to fix that. Janice sped up the last bit of the way to Princey's room, and if he nearly tripped because he was going too fast, that was his business and no one else needed to know. Regressed as he was, Janice couldn't remember how he was supposed to wake Princey up if he regressed midnight, but Princey was awake anyways, so it probably didn't matter, Janice decided. He opened the door to Princey's room and peeked his head in. Princey was on the bed, crying. He had a sharp knife. Even little, Janice knew that you weren't supposed to have sharp knives. Maybe Remus got in and hid the knife in Princey's hands. Whatever was going on, Janice had to make Princey leave the knife alone. It was dangerous. And, wow, what a horrible time to discover he was nonverbal. Instead of the plea for Princey to put the knife down like he had expected, a low, wordless whimper escaped Janice's mouth. Triple uh-oh. But at least it got Princey's attention. Princey jerked his head towards the doorway. He slipped the knife down beside him, as if Janice hadn't noticed it, and said, just like normal, "Hey, Jan, little." Janice nodded shyly, stepping into the room and making grabby hands for Princey. Princey hesitated. "Sorry, baby, I can't hold you right now." "Oh, okay." Janice tilted his head in confusion. What was so wrong with Princey that he couldn't pick Janice up? Then Princey shifted slightly, and Janice saw that he had boo-boos all over his arms. Janice let out a cry of protest at the cruelty of the world, letting his wonderful, sweetest Princey get hurt like this. "Hey, what's wrong?" Princey asked. He seemed concerned. Well, Janice was more concerned. Princey had boo-boos. Janice had to fix them. Janice rushed over as fast as he could and carefully touched Princey's arm. Then he looked up into Princey's face, which was guilty? You know, that could wait for later. Right now, Janice had band-aids to put on. After examining the boo-booed arms, Janice headed for the bathroom and pulled out his first aid kit. Not the fancy adult one Princey kept, but Janice's smaller first aid kit, which was really just a Duck McStuffin's lunchbox with some band-aids inside. But Janice proudly carried it out to his Princey, who looked worried. No, Janice was the one who needed to be worried. He had to fix Princey's boo-boos. No, Princey said anxiously. "It's okay, baby, you don't have to help." Janice gave him a stubborn glare and opened his special first aid kit for his special Princey. He jumbled through the band-aids until he found some he thought Princey would like. Sophia the First. She was royalty, just like Princey. He held the band-aids up to Princey for confirmation. Those are really cute, baby, but you don't. Janice held a hand over Princey's mouth. He would help Princey no matter what. He started with what he always saw Princey do, taking a carefully folded tissue from his box and unfolding it to wipe Princey's arms off. Wasn't it wet when Princey did it? Oh, well, it would work just as well dry as it would wet. Janice watched Princey's face closely, but he didn't seem to be hurting. His eyes were closed, but that was normal for Princey when anyone did something he didn't want them doing. Then he picked up the band-aids and very carefully put one on each boo-boo, making sure the sticky didn't touch the hurdy, and kissing it gently after it was on, just like Princey did whenever Janice got a boo-boo. He had to get more band-aids out halfway through, but eventually each of Princey's boo-boos was fixed. Janice smiled proudly and looked into his Princey's face for praise, only to find him crying. No! Janice fixed the bad. Princey wasn't allowed to be sad anymore. Janice panicked and whined, reaching up and smushing Princey's face in his hands. No more sad, no more. Princey didn't stop crying, but he smiled a shaky smile and said, Sorry, baby. Guess I'm not being a very good caregiver today, huh? Janice was angry that Princey would even dare to think that. He shook his head, hugging Princey tightly. He hoped his message got across. You could never be a bad caregiver. Princey smiled again, this time less wobbly, but still forced. Sorry, baby, he repeated. I'm just not really in a good place tonight. What? Of course Princey was in a good place. He was cuddling with Janice. Unless he thought cuddling with Janice wasn't a good place to be. If he were a bit bigger, Janice would have sadly climbed down and left, going to cry himself to sleep. But he was baby, so his only response was to burst out in wails. Oh, hey, what's wrong, baby? Why are you sad? Janice, of course, was nonverbal, so he didn't respond. He simply kept crying. Princey, his Princey, the bestest Princey who might not like cuddling with him, held him closer and made soothing noises. Did I say something? Princey asked softly once Janice's sobs turned to sniffles. I promise, whatever it was, I'll never, ever say it again. Janice was skeptical, but he trusted his Princey. He held up his pinky finger without looking, and Princey knew what he meant. Princey hugged his pinky with Janice's and made an unbreakable promise. Then Janice was satisfied. He stayed cuddled up against Princey, and he was just starting to drift off when he had a great idea. Whenever Janice felt down, Princey would hum. So that meant that whatever Princey felt down, Janice should hum. He picked a song out of the lullabies circling his head and started to hum. After a couple seconds, Princey started to sing along, but Janice held a hand over his mouth to stop him. Janice was comforting Princey this time. After a few rounds of the song, Janice cut himself off with a yawn. He curled up closer against his very bestest Princey. Well, he would be the bestest if Janice knew any other Princeys, but he was bestest anyways, and, smiling, starting to fall asleep. Thank you, baby, Princey murmured, his hand running through Janice's hair. Thank you so much. Janice smiled happily as he drifted off. Princey was happy, so Janice was happy. It was the bestest night ever. And that was Helping His Princey by CharlieIsFluid from AO3. Hope you appreciated it. Bye-bye.